What if the problem was never the magnets, but your idea of what it means to explain? Bring two magnets close together, pole against pole. Feel that push in the air, that invisible wall appearing where there seems to be nothing. Your brain demands a story. It wants a familiar mechanism. It wants someone to say, it's like a compressed spring, or it's like two hands pushing against each other. It wants to turn the strange into something domestic. But that's the trap. When you ask, why do magnets repel? You're not really looking for a physical law. You're looking for cognitive comfort. You're asking for the fundamental to be reduced to something simpler. And there's a problem. Electromagnetism is already one of the deepest layers of reality. There is nothing underneath it to make it more comfortable. We're used to causal chains. Something happens because something before it pushed it, a clear mechanical sequence. But when you reach the fundamental forces, the chain ends. Not because we lack creativity, but because you've reached the floor, and that floor is not a metaphor. It's a set of regularities we measure, write into equations, and test with brutal precision. Now think about something unsettling. It feels mysterious that two magnets push each other without touching, but it doesn't feel mysterious that your hand doesn't pass through a table. Push on a table right now. Feel the solidity, you feel contact, you feel resistance, and yet there is no real contact in the classical sense. At the atomic scale, your hand and the table are almost entirely empty space. If you expanded an atom to the size of a stadium, the nucleus would be a tiny point at the center, and the electrons would be spread far out in a probabilistic cloud. Everything else is space, so why don't you pass through the table? Because the electrons in your hand and the electrons in the table repel each other, like charges pushing away. Electromagnetism, the same family of phenomena that produces the push of a magnet. The only difference is scale. When the distance is microscopic, you call it contact. When the distance is visible, you call it mystery. The physics didn't change, your perception did. And this is where the conversation becomes truly uncomfortable, because if you accept that electromagnetism is fundamental, then you must also accept that not every why can be reduced to something more intuitive. At some point, explanation stops being narrative and becomes structural. Physics doesn't offer comforting stories. It offers coherent models that connect different phenomena under the same rules. It doesn't say, this happens because it's like something you already know. It says, this happens because it's part of this mathematical structure that also describes thousands of other things, and that structure works. We can calculate electromagnetic interactions with precision that borders on the absurd. We can design electric motors, MRI machines, microchips, lasers, antennas, global communication systems. None of that is poetry. It is the direct consequence of understanding how that force operates. Understanding in science does not mean feeling that everything fits your intuition. It means being able to predict results before observing them. It means being able to intervene in nature and have nature obey. That is real comprehension. But there's something deeper still. When you insist on asking, why does electromagnetism exist? What you're really asking for is a final foundation that needs no explanation, something that simply is. And that is exactly what the fundamental laws are, the point where reduction ends. It's not an intellectual defeat, it's architecture. A building needs a floor. You cannot demand that the floor be supported by another more comfortable floor. At some point, there is a base. The mistake is not in the answer physics gives. The mistake is in expecting every explanation to end in something your brain finds intuitive. Your intuition did not evolve to understand fields, differential equations, or fundamental forces. It evolved to survive, to throw rocks, calculate simple trajectories, distinguish predators from shadows. What you call common sense today is a biological tool, not a cosmic judge. That's why magnetism makes you more uncomfortable than a table, because you can see the space between the magnets. The visible void breaks your illusion of contact. It forces you to confront the idea that matter is not solid in the way you imagined. And when that illusion collapses, the entire world changes. Because electromagnetism is not a curiosity that appears only in magnets. It is the reason chemical bonds exist. It is the reason atoms form molecules. It is the reason light interacts with your retina. It is the reason you can move your fingers, why neurons transmit signals, why colors exist in your experience. The magnet is not the strange thing. The magnet is the clue. The clue that everything you call normal is sustained by the same kind of interaction that seemed mysterious a moment ago. And here is something that should astonish you more than any why. A single mathematical structure describes lightning, electrical circuits, chemical reactions, screens, wireless networks, and the simple fact that you don't fall through the floor when you walk. That is not a lack of explanation. That is unification. It is discovering that beneath the apparent diversity of the world, there is a small set of rules repeating again and again at different scales with different consequences. When you understand that, the question stops being, why do magnets repel, and becomes something far more powerful. How is it possible that the same set of principles governs almost everything I experience? That is the real wonder. Not that there is a limit to why, but that the universe has a structure so coherent that we can capture it in equations and use it to transform the world. So the next time you feel that invisible resistance between two magnets, don't look for a comfortable metaphor. Don't look for a story that softens it. Look at the space between them and understand that in that seemingly empty space operates one of the deepest layers of reality. The same one that holds atoms together, the same one that sustains your body, the same one that makes it possible for you to be here questioning all of this. What began as a simple question ends by revealing something brutal. Not every why has a story underneath it. Some whys are the floor, and learning to recognize the floor instead of demanding another, more comfortable layer is the exact moment you stop asking for comfort and start to understand. If you made it to the end of this video, comment, "I made it," and I will personally reply to you. And if this resonated with you, subscribe to be part of this and leave a like if you enjoyed it.